So tonight, I'll just tell you what I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about SABC, Southern Africa Bible College, and I'm going to be talking a little bit about Kempton Park, Church of Christ, and then talk a little bit about the family, a little bit about Africa, give you a little bit of heads up on that. When we were in Africa, it wasn't SABC, it was SABS, and we called it SABS, Southern Africa Bible School, and it's where I taught for about 6 years when we were there. Met a hunter on the way back from Africa. I thought this was interesting. This actually happened. I'm not making up a story here. So we were in Newark flying back, and I don't know, Deb, she's the friendly one. I don't know why she's talking to him, but so she was talking to him, so I got stuck in the conversation. So that's kind of the way it works with our family. She's friendly and I'm not. But she's talking to this guy and his wife, and he was a hunter, and he liked to bow hunt. He said he wanted so desperately to be able to go to Africa and hunt with a bow. And I'm sitting there going, that sounds dangerous to me. And I kind of warned it. He said, well, what's the toughest one? I said, well, probably a Cape buffalo. And he said, yeah, I'd like to hunt that. And I said, don't recommend that, not with a bow. Get a bigger gun and then be slow about taking that one on. Been a many a hunter killed by Cape buffalo. So, but anyway, well, what's the most difficult animal to hunt in Africa? And I thought a minute and I said, polar bear. So, The Lion Sleeps Tonight. Y'all know this song? Would you like me to sing it? Woo. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the background to this song that you probably didn't know. This song actually originates in South Africa. It actually originates by a Zulu guy. Y'all don't know what Zulu means, but a couple of you might know what Zulu means. But so the guy's name was Solomon Linda, and he wrote it back in 1939, and this is the song that came out right here. You see the Mbube? Okay, that turned into Wimaweh. Okay, that's not the way you say it, but at any rate, Wimaweh is not a word, but it's in your song. It's not even a word. It's made up word. So what happened is originally this was composed by this guy. His name is Solomon Linda. He's long passed away now. It was his tune. If you listen to that, you would hear that little high thing going on. They recorded that without a rehearsal, and it's great. You get a chance, look that up, listen to it. I didn't think that was appropriate for us to listen to tonight. But what was interesting is that was in 1939. And then someone went to South Africa and for 10 shillings, that's not a lot of money, got him to sell the rights of that song. It then went to America. He was not aware of what that meant when he sold it. He was popular for putting this record out. It was very popular at the time, back in the 30s and the 40s. Then it was unearthed by a guy named Pete Seeger, and then that was with the Weavers. But you know it, Wimaweh, decade later in 1951 by the Tokens. That was 1951. So all y'all hearing this. But then it became popular again. It's been recorded, covered by about 150 different artists. But in 1994, if you remember some of you kids might remember, it's called The Lion King. Anybody remember that? So The Lion King, and so that they got the song. It earned estimated $15 million in royalties. Now here's the bad part. Solomon Linda got none of that. 10 shillings was it. All he ever got. He died that way, but then later his family sued Disney for an untold amount. We don't know. They reached some kind of out-of-the-court settlement. At least the family got something. But Solomon Linda was perceived, this lack of recognition. His name was never on any of the paperwork or anything. And his fortune in his lifetime, he never got anything. But it was deemed an example of racial exploitation. And I think that's probably was true. But that's the history of the song and how it was actually South Africa and the Zulus. Interesting. Zulus are quite a large tribe in Africa. There are more than this, but there's at least 11 tribes in South Africa, and Xhosa is probably the largest, and that was Mandela. And the reason I mention all that is you think you know Africa. I promise you, I live there. I don't know Africa. Okay? Africa is still a mystery to me in many respects. And so if you think you understand Africa, think again. So, as a church, all we do, all we say, all we think, all we support should have its focus on Jesus. And so tonight I'm going to try to do that. John 12:21, Sir, we wish to see Jesus. I think that's what we should be about always. And John 12:32, and I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself. So I want to try to make the focus on him and yet tell you about the work we did. There's basically 3 messages. I'll tell you what, I'm going to talk about SABC, Kempton, and some of the family and what that relates to. So let's look at that. Number 1, they reported Jesus' communication whenever we read the scriptures. That was what he said was what was being reported. Listen to Luke chapter 4. Then he went down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and was teaching them on the Sabbath. So that's plural. He'd been teaching them there for a while. Verse 32, and they were astonished at his teaching, for his word was with authority. So this word got out. He's teaching in that area for several Sabbaths. We don't know how many. Verse 33, now in the synagogue there was a man who had a spirit of an unclean demon, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying, let us alone. What have we to do with you, Jesus of Nazareth? Did you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God. But Jesus rebuked him, saying, be quiet and come out of him. And when the demon had thrown him in their midst, it came out of him and did not hurt him. See, that's the power of his word, what he was saying. He had authority. Verse 36, then they were all amazed and spoke among themselves, saying, what a word this is. For with authority and power he commands the unclean spirits, and they come out. And the report about him went out into every place in the surrounding region. He'd been speaking and teaching. They were stunned by his authority, the way he spoke. When he spoke to the demons, stunned by the way he communicated. And all he did is just say simple words. So Jesus' communication power is what needs to be reported. That's the reason I think it's important to talk about the school. The school is this 3-year program of teaching the New Testament, the Old Testament, and the languages. And let me tell you a little bit what I learned in being there is this. So you have a first year, second year, third year. So it's like a law degree if you go through all 3, if you know what I mean, or a medical degree. It's kind of like that. And so they felt you were adept at being able to be in ministry if you got all 3 years. But a lot of people just go for the 1 year or 2 years. What I learned about first years, and this is, so sometimes you'll hear me say that person talks like a first year student. So a first year student, this was what was interesting to me, is first year students ask questions to teach the teacher things. Second year student asked questions to find out answers. Third year student did not ask questions. All right, so SABC, when I taught there, which was from 1990 to 1996, they averaged about 20 students, maybe 25. The majority of which were, I would say, mostly white. It wasn't all white, but it was mostly white. I'd say over 50% at that point. It's now fully accredited degree. So you get a full degree now from the universities there. And when we were there, they had 57 students, none of which were white. So it's really shifted, which is the direction it needed to shift. And it was all African students. So that was great. So now everybody's trusting the school to do what it's supposed to be doing. Graduates were about 20 first years. I don't know exactly how many seconds and thirds, but there were about 20 first years. So we were at the lectureship. Now, at the lectureship, you're fixing to say, This was graduation night, and this is the student body on stage. You didn't understand that because that wasn't English. So basically that's Tato. He's a really great guy. In fact, if you ever go look it up, Tato's lesson's probably the best lesson in the whole lectureship. The guy with his back to you. Awesome guy. He's written about 4 books too. He's smart as a whip. So there are about 46 speakers at the lectureship. And so it's not a little thing, as it's a big production. Hundreds come. I was one of them, by the way. And got to see some old faces. This guy over, that didn't work? That didn't work. What did I press? There. Oops, wrong way. The guy over there, he's one of the elders of the congregation that supported this work from the beginning as Memorial Drive in Houston, and also a great speaker if you ever get a chance to go and listen to some of that. So basically, they serve the churches of Christ in South Africa, and I think they're doing a fabulous job. I really do. 2 Timothy 2 and verse 2, all the things that you've heard from me among many witnesses, commit these to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. That's their point, because the power is in the teaching. Now you say, well, if power was in Jesus, yeah. But ultimately, the power is in what he taught, the word, which is what they're doing. So if you ever want to support something, any of the schools in any of the countries, and we have quite a few, could receive your help always. And it's what keeps the church going throughout the world. And that includes schools here in America, for the most part, who are teaching and training ministers. That was where we worked when we were there. Okay, second thing. They reported Jesus' cleansing power, not only his communication power, but his cleansing power. In Luke chapter 5, verses 12 through 15, it says this, and it happened when he was in a certain city that, behold, a man who was full of leprosy saw Jesus, and he fell on his face and implored him, saying, Lord, if you're willing, you can make me clean. Then he put out his hand and touched him, something you weren't supposed to do, saying, I am willing, be cleansed. And immediately the leprosy left him. And he charged him to tell no one, but go and show yourself to the priest and make an offering for your cleansing as a testimony to them, just as Moses commanded. However, the report, again, a report went out around concerning him all the more, and great multitudes came together to hear and to be healed by him of their infirmities. So interesting, his teaching was reported, and now his cleansing power was reported. So Jesus' cleansing power should be reported. So I want to talk about what I perceive his cleansing power having changed a congregation over there. Now, I don't know what you know about Kempton Park, or the fact, we don't support Kempton Park as a church. I'm telling you what we did and why we're a part of it. It is my brother-in-law who preaches there, and so I have some issues with the idea of that we would even support it. So that might be seen as a little bit of nepotism. So you got to be careful about that kind of thing. But, however, what had happened to the church, it was not a new congregation. It was a mainline Church of Christ for years. And then their preacher leaned more and more and more into Baptist doctrine. And so he didn't believe baptism was for the remission of sins. They began to use instruments of music and have a praise team with instruments, and we're having women lead in the services and that sort of thing. So he passed away. I won't name him because I don't want to say anything that sounds ugly that way. But he passed away, and his family kind of moved away, at least part of it. And so Paul had asked me, well, what should I do? And I said, well, you kind of change it. You got to make it right, but don't do it too quick. Now, I'm going to tell you that I believe I was wrong. I was right for encouraging to change it, but I think I was wrong for encouraging to do it slowly and try not to run people off. And I'll tell you why. It's because it didn't really work. It didn't accomplish what we had hoped. But so they gave up the instrument, and he started teaching that baptism was essential again, and things like that changed. So 2 years later, the people that they were trying to keep from leaving that were a part of that all left. They all left. And before they left, they tried a coup. So y'all don't know about ugly things in church, and that's because your eldership's protected you. But ugly things do happen in the church. So they tried a coup, couldn't accomplish it. Paul was a little too strong for them, and the elders that still existed a little too strong. And so they gave up and left and pulled others away. You might remember Paul was here about a year or two ago. The Sunday he was here, they were down to six people. And they had all pulled away. Now, and by the way, it was predominantly white, the congregation was. Now, the congregation is about 30% black, and about 70% black, about 30% white. Maybe not even that high, and now the congregation's back up to 70 to 100 on a Sunday. 70 on a low Sunday, 100 on a good Sunday. It seems that the brethren around had left and couldn't find a good church, and they were trying to meet themselves in little bitty places and homes and the like, because they had basically abandoned what we believe. And they heard that they were going back, and so a lot of them come back. But they've baptized tens of baptisms, but honestly, me suggesting trying to help him for not losing people didn't work. That tells me something. I don't know if it tells you this, but it tells me that liberal people are not as kind as you think they are. Yeah. Anyway, Galatians 6 verse 1. Brethren, if a man is overtaken in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted. So what I've discovered is dividers divide. So if you're ever a part in the future of a church that somebody gets the bright idea that you need to pull away and form a congregation that's more faithful, beware of those people. Most of the time, the group that pulls away is a group of dividers, and they can't get along with each other, and you'll end up splitting from them later. Dividers divide. But I'm grateful to report to you that they're doing great. That's a pretty good situation right there, in my opinion, that they back up strength and going on. Thought you should know about it, even though it's just you can contribute to it, even though it's not a ministry of our congregation particularly. Then I want to tell you about this part. They reported Jesus carrying power. Luke chapter 7. Let me show you this. Thought you'd want to see it. This is their congregation. You notice it's pretty full. It's about all they can hold. Okay, let me show you this a little bit. This is Paul. Caught him at a really good point there. They were baptized. This is actually Faith. That's part of our family, some of our Sheesby family, while we're there. So I want to talk to you now about the report that Jesus was carrying, and he had power in his carrying. Look at Luke chapter 7, verses 11 through 17. Now it happened the day after that he went into a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and a large crowd. And when he came near the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Here's the situation. A large crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her and said to her, "Do not weep." Then he came and he touched the open coffin, and those who carried him stood still. And he said, "Young man, I say to you, arise." So he who was dead sat up and began to speak. But that scared everybody. And he presented him to his mother. Then fear came upon all. I think the fear came upon all as soon as he stood up and began to speak. That's my opinion. And they glorified God, saying, "A great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people." And this report about him went throughout all Judea and all the surrounding region. So the report went out about him raising the dead, but it was more than that. I think it's a report about him caring, that he represents the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, that cared about a widow woman who lost her only support, her only son, that would be able to take care of him. So I don't think it's as much about just raising the dead as it is about caring. So I want to talk to you about a family. This may not seem important to you, but I'm not a part of the Sheesby family per se. But I get to step back and watch that family. And some of you know Mel. Some of you may remember Lois. But I've watched a family. And the Sheesby family gave a lot. I'm not talking about money. It's been a lot of sacrifices. I've seen them sell all. You know that sell all and follow me? I've seen them do that more than once. Seen them give up everything for the cause. And they're a fourth generation missionary family. By that, what I mean, what you may not know, is they are descendants of missionaries. They're missionaries, and their family are missionaries for 4 generations. Do you know how unusual that is? And they came not from England, not from America. No, that part of Zimbabwe was being evangelized by New Zealand. Yeah. And that's where their family came from. And so the 4 siblings had not been together in 30 years. Now let's think about your family. Now, why was that the case? It was for the cause. Now, I know you probably think it's not, but that's really it. So there were 6 of them with Mel and Lois and 4 children, 4 siblings. And the only reason they were able to be reunited was because of the inheritance that Mel left. So they took that money and from his death, and they wanted to get together. Now, in all, once we got all together, there were 32 in all, with wives and children and grandchildren, and but my 12, which are connected to them, not able to be there, obviously. 4 siblings, all in church. There they are, just at the house, just chilling. This is their formal picture. But they're all still together, and they're all still in church, and they're still involved. Deb's making the picture. That's why you don't see her. But that's Paul. That's his wife. That's Stephen's wife, Esme. That's Stephen. And that's Tim. And that's Tim's wife. They're all still in church, all still engaged. I think that's pretty remarkable, personally. So why do I mention that? Because I actually think God cares about your family. I really do. I think he cares about your family. He cared about this widow and what was going on in her life. He cares about your family. Matthew 18:14, even so it is not the will of your Father who is in heaven that one of these little ones should perish. I think he cares about every one of you and your little family. And so while this may look like, well, what does that have to do with me? I think the message is you need to get it. He cares about you, and he cares about yours and your family. And he wants you to be in church. That's pretty good, hey? Pretty good results, I think. And I've had nothing to do with that. Had nothing to do with me. All right. So that's a summary of that. Well, I'm not done. So I've not got much of a sermon come from that, but I do need to close this off. So that's what I think got reported: his communication power, his cleansing power, and his carrying power. I believe those are the things that got reported. So I think those are the things we should always report on. Those need to be shared with people. David Patch and Jeffrey Porcaro wrote, and y'all remember Toto? Yeah. Toto made it famous in 1982. Remember this? Now there's a line in this that always means something to me when I've been able to be in Africa, and it is true. I hear the drums echoing tonight, but she hears only whispers of some quiet conversation. She's coming in at 12:30 flight. The moonlight wings reflect the stars that guide me toward salvation. I stopped an old man along the way, hoping to find some old forgotten words or ancient melodies. He turned to me as if to say, "Hurry, boy, it's waiting there for you. It's going to take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do." I bless the rains down in Africa. Yeah, I've done that. Going to take some time to do the things we never had. Yeah, when it rains, because at the Highveld, it's dry a lot. And when you get where you can't touch anything without getting shocked, and finally it starts raining and you're thrilled. It's rough to go 4 months without rain, but that's pretty standard. So I told you that song to make this point because I think this is important. Don't you also want to hear 99 people sing Africa by Toto? It's something that 100 men or more could never do. It's a long way to go for that. Songs like these are great memories, and this is the truth. Tremendous amount of memories flood my soul. So let's go to one memory. And I've got a closing thing on this. Okay, so we're going to talk about the beasts for just a moment. I didn't have a picture of the lions. I don't know what happened to the picture of the lions. We made pictures of lions in the dark. They were right next to our vehicle. I don't know, there's two of them. One had a bad paw. He was limping along, but two males. We followed along for a mile or two. But we captured a couple of things. You see it? One of the things that's interesting and I'll just share this about it. If you ever go, one of the interesting things is you've got to develop eyes to see the animals. And when you first get there, you can't see the animals. Isn't this right, Scott? Give me some help here. So there's an animal here, there's an animal here, there's an animal here, and there's another one back over there. So, right? So you get where you can't see them. Lions can be right in front of you and you won't see them. You have to develop eyes for it. And of course, the people that are there all the time, they see them easily. They know exactly what to look for. Y'all can see those, right? 50 foot off the road, you ought to be able to see it, right? A lot of times, you have to be on the road. You're not allowed to walk. So you stay on the road, and if the animals aren't near the road, you don't see them, okay? And there's so many roads, and we stayed at Pretoria's Coop, Birkendall, and we went up to Skakuza, if you ever get a map out and look at it. Do you see it? Yeah? What do you see? Okay, that's good. That you'd say something else. All right. You see that animal in front of it down here? No, there's no animal there. I just want to make you look. Okay. Amen. Y'all know what those are, right? Wild dogs. It's wild dogs. Okay. And hyenas follow them around apparently because they're better hunters than hyenas. Hyenas are good hunters. By the way, you think that hyenas are just scavengers, but they are actually really good hunters themselves. And I knew one guy that kept a hyena for his pet during the war, and he'd scare people with it, and he accidentally let it get too close to a guy, took his knee off. All right. That's a hyena. They're bigger than they look, too. They're about somewhere along that size. So they're pretty big. But they're built weird, hey? Kind of built like a giraffe. That's a baby And there's a den right next to the road. I mean, literally in the culvert, right underneath it. It's kind of cool. That's just a baby. All right. That's the meanest thing over there, I believe. I don't think there's anything meaner than that thing. And a herd of them, and that's a male, and they're by themselves, and they're just in a bad mood all the time. And they will chase and find and kill a hunter. Yeah. They plot it. Yeah. And you about can't kill them. Yeah, and they're a lot bigger than you think, too, okay? A lot bigger than you think. All right. This one thinks he's tough. All right. So I want to talk to you just a moment about beasts, and then I'll be through. All these beasts have been captured, trained, and killed by men. James 3 verse 7 says that. 2 Peter 2 verses 9 through 12, though. The Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of temptations and reserve the unjust under punishment for the day of judgment, and especially those who walk according to the flesh, the lust of uncleanness, and despise authority. Remember, we're talking about the authority of Jesus. There are people that despise that. They are presumptuous, self-willed. They're not afraid to speak evil of dignitaries. Remember how they were afraid when they saw what he was capable of, raising the dead? They're not afraid. Verse 11, whereas angels, who are greater in power and might, do not bring a reviling accusation against them before the Lord. Verse 12, but these, like natural brute beasts, made to be caught and destroyed, speak evil of the things they do not understand, and will utterly perish in their own corruption. There are many amazing beasts in Africa. The 5 big ones are the lion, the leopards, the rhino, the elephants, and the buffalo, but they're all just beasts. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people who are just beasts. They live like animals. They have never made a commitment to the Lord. It's the worst thing to see. If you know people who don't know the Lord, they're just living like an animal, eating, sleeping, eating, sleeping, eating, sleeping. If you're here and you haven't given your life to the Lord, stop just eating and sleeping. Get to know the Lord. Come to know Him. Become more than just a beast. Become a spiritual person. The invitation is always yours. Thank you for listening. If you need to come, come while we stand, while we sing.